Hello, and welcome to BecomeOne Living.
And thanks for everyone for being here.
Yes, so today is a live podcast, and in-house we're at Yoga Bohemia in Long Beach Island, New Jersey.
And we're excited to have live people to interact with and ask questions and answer questions.
Yeah. So in the room we have people, our friends, new friends, some that we've known for a long time. And we're talking today about trauma and the nervous system and yoga, because we have a lot of yogis and yoginis here. My name is Jody Dommerstad. This is my husband,
Dan Boysutz.
Why do we talk about these things, and why today am I sharing about trauma? Trauma's everywhere now. The word is finally out and it's trending. I'm excited about that in many ways. In other ways, I'm kind of resistant to it, I guess, because I don't want us to get this fearful idea of trauma. I want to be able to talk about trauma or experiences that feel or felt traumatizing openly and without shame or fear of what someone's going to think about us.
But what's great about how you've gotten to here, Joe, is yoga is your foundation. Yoga is, a big part of your life. It has been for a really long time. And so as you've gone through your journey of yoga, other things have influenced you that are not independent of yoga, but supportive of yoga and almost one with yoga in terms of information that just now corroborates or supports or informs how yoga helps people or can help people or provide tools to help people to transform.
Yeah.
And that's been your journey.
Yeah, so that's why I sit here talking about trauma. I have been severely traumatized. Thank you. I mean, who hasn't in this world?
Life's
right?
challenging. Yeah,
Yes.
life's stressful.
And two things I want to start off with. Yoga is about non-duality. So if you're listening in, or our friends that are here with us live, there's this concept of Purusha and Prakriti, energy and material, or black and white, hot and cold, duality, good or bad. This happened to me, it's bad. That happened, it's good. In yoga, in the study of yoga, physical, mental, emotional yoga, we seek equanimity, neutrality, meaning life happens and we don't have to move. We can stay steady and say, oh, I'm witnessing myself get mad. That's prefrontal cortex. Or I'm going to get mad and I'm going to react. That's the limbic system. So in the nervous system, it is kind of black and white. Is there a gray? Absolutely. But let's look at it in this moment as dualistic. You're either in fight or flight, you're on and you're scanning, or you're resting and digesting, which means, wow, I feel safe in this moment. What we were talking about in the room a couple minutes before we started was, I invite you all listening, and I invite everyone live again to ask yourself, how do I experience stress? And all stress is any event, any person, place, or thing, anything that pulls you off of balance, off of your homeostasis, off of your rhythm. You're going on with your day and you get a flat tire. Boom, that's stress. That's stress. You go home to eat something and someone ate your leftovers. That's stress. Stress doesn't have to be bigger than you don't like your job, or your job is stressful and you go every day. That's stress. Now what does that do to you physiologically and psychologically? Your body responds to that stressor, releasing hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. So I want to talk about cortisol because when Dan and I walked this morning, we discussed it. Cortisol is released over time, and it has to do with metabolism. That's why if you've seen, they say, oh, if you gain weight around the middle, that could be cortisol. So cortisol is released over time to help you deal with low-grade stress that's happening often. Adrenaline is a quick rush. It's needed to get you out of a situation. It creates alertness and focus. You're crossing the street and a speeding car is coming. That's adrenaline. It's going to get you out of the way. Cortisol is just going to help you get through the day.
Yeah, I'm wondering, just real quickly, wondering how much information do you want to share before you invite questions?
Oh, I don't know. Well, maybe now. Shall we? Anyone? Question?
I mean, you're welcome to, you're invited to ask questions. We don't want you to be, feel like you're witnessing something that you're not a part of. So.
Well, I want to give a little more info.
Okay.
And then we'll see if anything comes up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm sure we have a lively group here.
Yeah.
They'll let us know. I want to go back to the beginning of time. That's a joke because I don't even know when time started because it's linear anyway. That's a whole nother podcast about how time doesn't exist in the brain. It doesn't exist. It only exists because we take memories and add them in sequential order, and now we've created this timeline. Okay, forget that. Forget I said that. I want to go back. So you have the prehistoric brain is the brain that is wired still at this time. And it's the primitive brain. It is sensing your environment, the people around you, asking, are these people safe? Is this safe or is this unsafe? Okay, that's the prehistoric brain. When you move up into the middle of the brain is when emotions start to come, the mammalian brain, where you add in the amygdala, you have fear. You have the emotions in the midbrain. And we call it the limbic system, the limbic center. If you Google this, or we were saying, what is it, Chat IT, or what this I? Yeah, ChatGPT. I have no idea, but if you Google this and try to research it more, you may see multiple parts of the brain are called the limbic center, because all neuroscientists have different views. What I share with you is the hippocampus, the amygdala, and the thalamus. Those are what we're going to talk about to keep it simple. Now, you're scared or you're stressed, you're smelling and things smell off. You go to the midbrain and emotions rise. This ain't right. This ain't right. Something's off. You go to the hippocampus and you pull memories of what happened. That's where memories are. You go to the hippocampus and you go, where has this happened before? How can I predict this? So now let's say I'm mad at Jackie, or Jackie did something or my husband, someone, and I'm mad at them. I might not be mad at them. It might be from a memory from the past that I'm pulling into the moment, blaming him, which is what we call now projection. You're projecting on me. Yeah, I'm very well maybe, because that's what I remember. That's what happened. Now, how do you get through this? How do you work through this? How do you work with this? In the prefrontal cortex. That's here, the front of the brain. I'm pointing to my forehead, if you're listening. Prefrontal cortex is also known as the neocortex, the new cortex. We have evolved to critical thinkers. I remember seeing like a comic strip of a caveman, and he's like, I got an idea. Once they got that idea, the front of the brain started to grow to problem solve, executive functioning. In that area is where witnessing happens. It's where you can separate enough to see, oh, that's happening and I feel mad, but I don't have to react. I don't have to react in that way. I actually can create space.
It's great. Witnessing, yeah, consciousness, witness, awareness, all prefrontal. And what takes you there?
What takes you to the prefrontal cortex? You do. Yoga does. Mindfulness. Prefrontal cortex, just because you do asana doesn't mean you can go prefrontal. You have to do the system of yoga for prefrontal engagement, meaning you have to move your body, yes. You also have to be able to concentrate, one-minded focus. You have to be able to sit still sometimes. You have to be able to critically think, yamas and the niyamas. You need to use the 8 limbs of yoga and study them to the point where you embody them, meaning you can live with them for a little while and then use them to build a capacity to work with your stress and or your trauma.
Yeah, asana is great in that way, in that sense that if you're practicing each day, you can begin to create and understand your body's feedback in ways that you begin to tell yourself, oh, I'm having one of these days. Oh, or this is going to be one of these days. Or I'm having that memory. And those patterns begin to inform you as well. So shaking out the body in an asana class is a great tool so that you can create the awareness of what's affecting you or supporting you. And things may come up repeatedly that you want to begin to unpack. So it's great to shake out your body. You have to shake out your body.
It's the quickest way to release excess energy is movement. And I don't mean alignment movement. Sometimes most of the time I mean just do cat-cow. Get on your hands and knees and move your spine. And why spine? Rocking movement helps to regulate the nervous system. Rocking. When babies cry, what happens? Moms or people pick them up and shake them, jostle them, move them. My mom is known for any kid crying, sweeping it up and rocking it.
Yeah.
Right?
And a healthy, my teacher in craniosacral shared with us that the very first move in embryo or baby coming out of the birthing woman makes is literally, if it's being born healthfully and its head is face down, your body as the baby, you literally do this motion to help your mom and be in unison with your mom to work your way out.
So Dan is showing flexion and extension of the neck. The head presses against the birth canal and tucks back in to help push out, to help come out in unison with the mother.
Right.
Wow.
So, I mean, never underestimate the simple things that you discover in your asana. Those things, cat-cow is just critical, crucial, healthy, can remedy so many things, and just in that one extension and flexion.
Yes, it's extension and flexion of the neck, because the 10th cranial nerve comes from your brain down the sides of your neck. The 10th cranial nerve is the vagus nerve. That's another new big trendy word that everyone is talking about, the vagus nerve. And it means the wandering nerve. It is the only nerve in the body that touches every organ. Every organ. I'm going to say that again. It's a nerve that's in the brain that connects to every organ, your heart, your lungs, your stomach, your intestines. And we were discussing before, why does my belly shut off? Why does digestion stop? Because there is a threat. There's a perceived threat. Now, I'm using the word perceived for a reason. Your brain doesn't know what's real or fake. Doesn't know. That means if I tell a story to our friends live and it's not healed, I will start to physiologically release the hormones attached to that story. And I'll start to experience it. That's why sometimes when people share with me, they feel things after sharing because they've relived what just happened. So perceived threat is important to understand, that what you think and is really informing your whole physiology. So that's not wooey, airy-fairy when someone says what you think you become. No, that's real. So if you're continually fearful and afraid of life, you will experience life as fearful. Trust me, I was there. After having a stroke and tumor, I was afraid to sleep for years. I thought, if I fall asleep, I'm not going to wake up, I'm going to die. That was what my nervous system told me, until I had to learn to regulate my nervous system to get it out of freeze or collapse, and to come back home to say, whoa, like I'm here now. I'm not there anymore. But I had to first admit it. And I hope y'all hear this. And this is what I shared with the group, and I will always share this. Tell the truth and tell it quick. Tell the truth and tell it quickly. Not to the world, but to you. I feel severely depressed. Awesome. Let's start with that. My life is a complete mess. Perfect. I stay up all night and buy things and hide them from my husband. Let's go there. I'm sharing that because I'm an IFS practitioner, internal family systems practitioner. It's a psychology. It's awesome, created by Dick Schwartz. And I work with people's parts. We work with their parts. If you don't acknowledge your parts, you will live in threat of your parts. You'll be afraid of depression. You'll be afraid of anger. You'll be afraid of your trauma response, and then you can't heal it. So we need to build the BecomeOne yoga therapy method. Helps people build a capacity to hold whatever's here, to hold it, and then to rewire your nervous system to be able to regulate according to life. We're not trying to biohack. We're not trying to regulate out of pain. No, you want to be able to regulate with it and live life, not push away things that you don't like. I tried that. It was very lonely. I was afraid of life. We didn't go to a concert for how many years?
You mean since Pink?
Yeah. It was 5 years, I think, after brain surgery, or even 7.
It was a long time. Yeah.
I couldn't go to concerts after brain surgery. And the story was, oh, I'm too sensitive.
Yeah, I mean, forget concerts. It was just crowded places.
Okay. All right. I couldn't go to the food store.
To get to a concert. You're sharing such great information, Joe, but can you say something more about the vagal? Because the vagal nerve is an incredible nerve to me. It innervates all of the organs inside of you. And it's easy to forget. It's easy to look out and say something stresses me externally, but something external, food that you eat that say one body's allergic to, that informs too and puts you on alarm from the inside out.
Yes.
Right?
So we have things called top down and body up. Body up is more primitive and movement, and top down is more mental, where something happens and it tells something happens and the brain tells the body how to react. And then sometimes you eat something and it tells the brain how to act. So polyvagal theory, this is the theory. And I wrote down notes so that I stay on track because I love to share whatever I can. Immobilization is the first part of the polyvagal theory, and that's associated with freeze and shutdown. Immobilization, I'm shutting down. Freeze. And as babies, we were discussing babies, all they know at first is to lay there, flip over, and crawl, slither like lizards and snakes. That's primitive brain. And they're known for freezing. That's the only response they have. The only primitive is freeze or scream and yell.
Right, the lizard.
Like a lizard.
Right.
Yes. The next is mobilization, which is fight or flight. So you become immobilized, you freeze. In the freeze response, here's some symptoms. In immobilization, in freeze, it's associated with thyroid issues, low heart rate, low blood pressure, malnourishment, inability to digest. Those are all symptoms of being frozen. When I was in the hospital, they had a heart rate monitor on me all the time, and they thought I was an elite athlete because my heart rate was 40. They like resting heart rate was 40, and at sleep, well, no, when I would sleep, it would drop, and they would panic because I was in complete shutdown. My heart rate was so low. So if you get up and you're dizzy, that could be part of a shutdown response. Could be. It could be other things, but these are things I hope that open you up to look at. Am I really that stressed? Yes, probably. Or have I been traumatized? And what is trauma before I go to mobilization? What is trauma? It is an event that overwhelms the nervous system where you cannot wrap your head around this. It's like, what just happened? Where did this come from? And I can't even conceive what happened. That's a threat. That's a trauma. So stress is a little disruption throughout your day. Okay? And then a trauma is an event in which your nervous system is so overwhelmed it can't make sense of what's happening. So a simple car accident is traumatizing, and people will come out and say, no, I'm fine. Meanwhile, their car is totaled. And they'll be like, I'm fine. I'm like,
Well, I mean, is that adrenaline?
yeah, the adrenaline kicks in. But I was going to say, I want to say to them, you don't even know you're not.
Yeah, right. You don't.
You don't know you're not okay because of the adrenaline.
Right.
Adrenaline gives you juice to function and to survive. That's why after an event, it could take 24 to 48 hours to just come down from the event. Right. Most people don't come down from a day of work.
Right. Yeah. Now, I'm thinking too, if you're in an accident also, now you have a compound, so if you'll have a physical injury, now you'll be emotionally and physically. And with the physical body, if you go to those physical points that have felt the impact, that will summon those responses.
Yes.
And can be both. I mean, they're informative, but once you learn to get with them, just be with it, that can help you take you back to a homeostatic or a better place than, from where the accident and the injury is. It can take you to a better place.
Yeah. Dan saying that reminded me of a word, interoception. That is, so you have proprioception is me in space, understanding, okay, Dan's next to me to my left, there's people on my right. Proprioception is physical, me, where I am. Interoception are the signals inside your body. It's you getting to know them. And I shared a little about this earlier. For people that have anxiety, excitement may register as anxiety. They might not even know that they're excited. They may have anxiety for so long that they think, oh my God, I'm so anxious. And some people that live in shutdown mode, when they start creating or they get excited and want to play, they won't be able to do that. That will be seen as dangerous because they got to stay shut down. They got to play dead. They got to stay collapsed. So coming out of that could be a threat. So it's normal to not want to change. I hope you all hear this. If you struggle with changing habits, or you struggle with changing your life, then you're human. Congratulations. Because the way the brain works is it loves predictability and familiarity. Because if you could predict what's going to happen, then your odds of staying alive are great.
You have to be courageous to transform. Yeah, everyone that comes to work with you on a one-on-one basis to get the tools that you have to offer, and because it's our household, you share sometimes, and it's, to me, feels like it's always an initial resistance. There's always an initial, oh, that's not me. They just shared what it is to you, and then it feels like, but they don't want to own it. So there's a resistance, and so it takes courage to transform, and it's nothing that you should pretend you're going to do in a day.
Yeah. The brain learns small, repeatable actions over time. If you want to change anything, it has to be small enough that you can do it.
Which is right out of the Yoga Sutras.
That's a Yoga Sutra. Repetition over time with love equals change. That's in the Yoga Sutras. It's 1.14. Time. Going back to what Dan said is courage to change. I knew something was wrong very young. I'm talking about 7. When I was eating a box of cookies and my mom said, "Where are the cookies?" and I would say, "I don't know." When I would lie right to her face, I knew something was wrong. And then moving on, when I would cut myself, I knew something was wrong. And then it led to other things, addiction and depression and treatment and all these other things it led to. I had yoga since my teens. I've been teaching yoga, studying yoga since my teens. I was doing the practices knowing I wasn't right, knowing that there was another way to live. And even today or yesterday, when I was preparing for the podcast, I asked myself these questions still. So being courageous means, am I prepared today? Did I do my due diligence? Who's showing up today? Am I angry today? Today I was crying. I meditated a little and Dan goes, "What was there?" And it was so impactful what rose. I started crying when I realized certain things that are still here and present. But the system of yoga, if practiced, is innately trauma informed. Because it says start with understanding you. Study yourself. If you're afraid of yourself, you will get nowhere. If you're not willing to turn on the lights and say, wow, I see the darkness, I see the brokenness or the challenges, that's when you get to say, okay, I'm ready, and you might not be able to do it then either.
Yeah.
But at least you're willing.
And me and Joe are definitely the dark and the light. So just the same, it's like you could be afraid of your greatness. You could be afraid of how awesome you can be. That can set you fearful. So again, courage, coming from your heart, or going into your heart and listening deeply to your heart. And when you're doing yoga, listening deeply, not with your ears, with every cell of you, all of your senses, listening so deeply that you begin to understand yourself, because yourself will tell you what you need, and you may need to change a habit or geographically move to another country. Your heart will tell you that, and then it takes the resources that you've got to summon up to make those things happen for yourself. But if you listen deeply and move your body regularly, you'll be inching toward that lifestyle.
And Dan sharing, he comes from light and I come from the dark, is very much our life. Welcome to our being. When I met Dan is, he always saw things so positively. It was innate in him. for me, it wasn't innate. It was negativity was innate. Fear was innate. It was a practice and an unfolding and a healing and a removing of the layers to learn that life is safe. That's not what I experienced. That's not what I learned. So the practices can help both.
Right, and neither is better.
Oh, no. It's yoga. It's duality. We are the example. And look, you can't see if you're listening. I have black on. He has like white. It's perfect. We are dualistic, but at the root, it isn't good or bad. It's the way we can have these conversations, and it's the last piece. So that was beautiful. The last piece is social engagement. So the polyvagal theory is mobilization, immobilization, mobilization, and then social engagement, which is the most evolved part of the brain, which is safety and connection. So we go from frozen, disconnect, to running around frenetically, scared, anxious, fight or flight, to I'm connected and I'm safe. That's where we want to get. And that goes back to where I started sharing. I want a world that talks about this. I'm okay talking about death and darkness and God or divine energy or all those things that people don't want to hear. I'm okay with that. That's just what I enjoy, actually. I know it's a little weird, a little dark, and there's always space for everything.
Yeah, the back, I don't even remember when, but when I used to go to yoga and they would say, come with an open mind, to me that's so powerful. And the statement that I come to is just this silly little statement, is that to come with an open mind, it's like, if you like vanilla ice cream cones, that doesn't mean you don't have to like chocolate. You know what I mean? And being as the state of the world right now seemingly seems to be perceptively so divisive, it's like to return back to, like, just because someone likes one color doesn't mean they don't at some point in their lifetime want to experience the other colors. So allow yourself, your journey, to expand.
Yeah. And before we wrap up, a lot of the neuroscience that I've studied was through neurosculpting school that I took with Lisa Wimberger years ago. And that's when I realized I never felt safe. And we're wrapping up this podcast, but we'll share more on trauma because it's huge. It's a big topic, and if you know more about it, you may be able to learn to heal yourself or work with someone that can support you in bringing your nervous system back to your balance, your homeostasis, your place where you thrive, which is different from where I thrive and Dan thrives.
Right.
And meanwhile, that's what yoga is. Yoga is about exploring self through the body. Against the teachings, you hold the teachings. Am I doing this? Am I doing that? Who's doing this? With inquiry and compassion. Yeah, man, I think everybody should do yoga. And I'm not an absoluter, so I'm going to absolute that. We all need a little yoga in our lives.
Yeah.
Oh, so any questions? Anyone live? Oh, we have questions. Okay.
Whether it's trauma or stress, I know I want to get rid of it as quickly as possible. Are you saying I should jump on my yoga mat and that will help me? I just want it over with.
Yes. Great question. So the question was whether it's stress or trauma, I just want to get it over with. So should I jump on the mat or journal or something? We had a little question about that earlier. And what I'm going to say too is we first don't want to get rid of anything. Because as soon as we want to get rid of something, it's a perceived threat. So I don't want to feel this stress. I got to get it out. I got to get rid of it. Or I don't want to be depressed. But you're depressed, but I don't want to be. So that implies that that's dangerous. I don't want to feel this. I don't like it. Now the brain then goes into fight or flight or freeze because you're fighting something that you're experiencing. How do you then work with this? That's what I want to share, is work with it. Wow, I'm so anxious right now or stressed. It doesn't feel good. Tell yourself that, not I got to get rid of it. This doesn't feel good. My heart is racing. I have diarrhea, or gas, or I'm anxious. I feel like I want to throw up. I don't like this. Say that to yourself. That's the first part, is I don't like this. And then you move back a little and you say, I wonder if there's anything that I can do to support myself in this moment, not to get rid of it. I don't know if that seems splitting hairs, but we're not trying to get rid of anything. We're trying to get with it, to regulate our nervous system with it. So the question would then be, what's here? And then sometimes it might be shaking out, getting on your mat. And then other times it may be going for a walk. And other times it may be calling a friend and say, I'm really sad, will you listen?
So your instinct is great. Yes, to move, but not exactly for that reason, right? Unfortunately, it could be a deeper dive for you, for anyone. But the instinct to move, most assuredly, is good, is healthy. And we like yoga, but I mean, you could be dance, swimming,
shaking, wiggling, rocking.
It's a good idea. And one of Joe's modalities that she practices is you move the body and then you speak to and dive into what comes up in that moment.
Yes.
So you're not coming with a preconceived, like you're going to your mental health care worker and you're like, oh, I can't wait to get there, but what am I going to talk about? And you're trying to come up with something to talk about just so you can fill the hour. So maybe you don't even have to address what you really need to. You know what I mean? It gets too heady. So moving, shaking out the body can bring you to a great place.
The way I do it is I take a journal, put it by the side of my yoga mat, and I do a yin pose or cat-cow. I do simple. And the simplicity is familiarity, right? So keep it simple, cat-cow or a yin pose, pigeon, half saddle, and be with yourself and breathe and say, what's here? What's here? If that's what you're called to. So that you're somatic. There's this big word again now. It's been around forever, but everyone's a somatic person now. But what somatic really means is there's a dialoguing also. Okay? So it's not just movement. So if you want to work through or with something that's here, it's movement and dialoguing. And not dialoguing to get rid of it, dialoguing to be with it. And then maybe next thing you know, you're journaling. Wow, I'm really angry. And I don't know where this is coming from. So that you start to build a relationship with yourself. One more question? Questions? Yeah.
Is it more to be like accepting where you are, and then over time, the more you accept where you are, the release will happen?
Yes.
Eventually?
Yes. The question was, is it to accept where you are? And if you keep doing that, will it heal or unwind on its own? Yes. Carl Rogers, I think, yes, calls it unconditional positive regard. Yes, I repeated it. Yeah. Unconditional positive regard. Because compassion is where? In the front of the brain. To shift something, we want to shift it from love, compassion, and clarity, not from fear. I got to get rid of this I got to kill this. I got to destroy this because it's attacking me or it's dangerous. But when we separate it and say, wow, I'm really sad today. And you start to feel towards that sadness compassion, or I'm angry, and you feel compassion towards yourself for that anger, and you start to converse with it like an old friend, that's when it heals. Because you would never say to a friend, don't be angry. I hope you wouldn't say that. You would say, tell me what's going on. That's how it shifts. It's like, yeah, I'm furious. I want to break stuff. I have a Hulk part. I want to smash. Yeah, and to love that part because it's protecting you. So stress and anxiety, they're here for information. And so it's what's the information that I can learn to transmute it, not get rid of it, but alchemize it, to fuse into my life, to fully be who I'm meant to be instead of trying to like push things away and keep things at bay. So yeah, acceptance, that's prefrontal cortex. It's not a positive affirmation. Like, I love you. No, you don't. I'm healthy. No, you're not. It's like, wow, I'm so not well today. What do I need? To be held. To be acknowledged. And that's a practice, right? That's entrainment. How can I train myself to have compassion? And going back just briefly to what Dan said, me living negatively was very challenging for me to be kind to myself, to be tender with myself.
And we all have familial patterns, right? In my family, essentially any forward or progressive kind of dialogue or conversation was shut down. But when I met Jody, I started to witness this pattern of, like, her mom would call her sister Deb, so the sisters. And it was like one would say, like, how's your day? And it's like, oh, I stubbed my toe. And then it would be like, the response would be, well, oh my God, I stubbed my toe and I hit my elbow. And it was like, would go on and on. It was like a competition to see who had the worst day. And I'm like, I'd rather have my family stuff and just get shut down. Because it's like, where do you go from there? So, but the point is to recognize the patterns within you and within your family and in your greater community. And that's yoga includes tools that are to be done independently by self, and then community, lots of community things, chanting or yoga in classes, asana in classes, So there's always a variety of tools at your disposal to move your understanding of yourself forward. But don't ever use a sledgehammer, and always be kind to yourself, and don't think it's supposed to happen overnight, but trust your instincts, moving your body to shake it out. Yeah, that's like, there's plenty of people that will just get up and dance, or dance, whatever soothes the soul. I mean, and we're at I feel like a stage in life where everything has the potential to be therapy for you. So if you like to play the piano, playing the piano can be therapy for you. If you like to dance, dance can be therapy for you. If you like to journal, journaling can be therapy for you. If you like to have conversations and improvise, that can be something healthy for you. You just have to listen with every piece of you to what really makes you feel good.
Yeah. We've moved so far away from self, and that is from childhood. We could talk about that in another podcast. We shift who we are to get our needs met. We become who we need to be in relationship to family, friends, parents, aunts, uncles, to get our needs met. And then we're here at 50 or in our 30s or whenever we wake up and we say, well, who am I?
Yeah.
I don't know this person. And that's when the unpacking starts, is the idea of becoming one isn't that you're not one, you already are one, but you forgot because you're covered up. And the yoga practice, the system of yoga practice is to remind you who you are. That doesn't happen in just asana. And that's why I promote the system and not just physical classes. Because it just can't happen because we're multidimensional, not because it's a Jodyism and because Jody doesn't like it. Who cares about Jody? We're multidimensional. We're physical, we're mental, we're emotional. We're not just physical beings. There's another question?
So somebody in the chat asked, and I think it had to do with Joan's question, is how do you do the opposite, feeling the darkness and wanting to dwell in it?
when you feel that the darkness and you want to dwell in it is when you have to move. So in Ayurvedic medicine, or when we look at the nervous system, if you're dwelling in this heaviness or the shutdown, you need to go run or shake. And the collapse, you need to come out of the collapse, even if it's just a little movement. So sitting here, I could just go, I can rock. I'm rocking forward and back. Doesn't have to be a great big movement. But I was in collapse for a few years and didn't want to do any yoga or any movement or not work out, do nothing. And so sitting in meditation was addictive, because I thought, wow, I'm enlightened, I'm becoming enlightened, and I don't have to move. And that lack of movement actually kept me further away from meeting what was there.
And just to add, right before what Jody just shared to that question though, I would offer that just become more aware also of your dwelling in that. So, and then learn how to dwell just enough.
We call that titrate. What you do is you go in and you come out. So you dwell, and I was a dweller, and then I would go watch a movie. You dwell, you sit in it, like, wow, I'm in it, and you don't try to figure it out, and then you go for a walk. So we want to let go of this concept that yoga is about relationship. And what Dan said, that was beautiful. It's like, I'm dwelling in this, okay, stay with it, but if it's not helpful, get out of it. Go, call a friend, go to a movie, go do something. So
yeah, there's something to all those things that have been discovered, like I forget the number of hugs a day can help you.
9.
You should have 6 friends that you can call and have a conversation with to help you move forward with something that's troubling you. Because contrarily is typically what a human does when they're not feeling good about themselves is shut down and get alone. And get solitary.
And the time we live in is isolation, especially during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right? We were isolated. Yeah. And I've learned I became used to being isolated. Like Dan would say, oh, we're going out to dinner. And I'd be like, yeah. And the day would come, I'd be like, I don't want to go.
Oh, it's horrible. Like 2 hours before going out on a date, on a dinner date with friends, it's like, no. And I'm thinking, I know this is going to be great for her, and she's going to be talking the whole time, but I have to endure this resistance.
There's a cutest meme on Instagram with Batman. He's a Lego.
He's in a cave, his cave.
Yeah, and Bruce is saying,
you got to go.
You really should go out and meet people. No, you would like it. No. And he just starts going, no. And I sent it to Dan, who's not an Instagrammer, because he goes, every time we're going to do something, I contract and I think, no, I don't want to. That is a default. Someone used that word earlier. And so if you dwell in the darkness, 1, 2 is to acknowledge, life is dark. There is darkness. And all darkness is the covering of the clouds. And not to be afraid of the darkness. And if it does get scary, that's when you get help, by the way. I have a team. So when people are like, what am I supposed to come to you the rest of my life? Yeah, you are. Or find someone else. I'm not getting rid of my team, people. I have my IFS practitioner. I have an Akashic Records person. I have this, I have that. That is not a luxury, that's a necessity. Because I go deep and I go dark. And if I can't get through it on my own, I'm getting help. So that is also important to hear. We're not meant to do this isolated. We're meant to do this in groups and with people that can support the level we're at. Okay? The reason I know some of the stuff I know personally is not many people could handle me. I'm joking and I'm not. They couldn't handle the trauma I experienced. I hadn't found someone. Now you're going back 10 years when it really broke open for me. That wasn't, now that's the biggest thing is all these trauma therapists now. It's different now. But years ago, even 15, 20, when I was putting myself in a treatment center because I thought I was going to go crazy. I was losing it from processing something that was way bigger than me. So get help and find someone that you work with. Okay, what else do we got?
Any other questions?
Yeah, question.
Okay. What if you went through some trauma and you couldn't deal with it and you go on antidepressants? Now, how do you find your way off of them or feel
Yeah.
all this stuff?
So the question was, what if you experienced a trauma and you forgot about it or you didn't feel or pushed it down
Take prescription.
and you then go on a prescribed medication to help deal with life, to help function? How do you come off of them, or how do you reintroduce yourself naturally and organically? That could take some time. And I'm not anti-meds. I'd like to just say that. I believe if anyone needs anything in the moment and it helps them, you better do it. Okay? When I went into the ER and they were like, you need this, this, and this, I was like, I opened up my arms and my elbows and I said, get going. Stick me with anything you need to help me survive. All right? After that piece is getting a therapist or a practitioner or someone that you feel connected with. This is something so important beyond credentials. I work with people in IFS where other people think, I don't know if that's your skill set. My skill set is meeting you where you're at. If you can regulate enough and be with me and do parts work, we're good. We can move beyond anything. So the first thing would be to meet and find someone that you truly feel safe with, not that you think knows. So as a yoga teacher, we have some yoga teachers in the room and maybe some online. If you want to be an extraordinary yoga teacher, first get yourself straight and co-regulate on your own, be able to co-regulate, and then be able to help your students co-regulate. Because that's the part I was sharing about social engagement and safety. So I would say interview as many people as you need to find someone that you feel you could work through this process with. And make sure, please, everyone hear this, make sure the person you work with has a plan, has a process for you, has steps for you to meet. Because we don't want you just talking about what happened. Like years ago, that's what I did. That's why I stopped talk therapy. It was like, oh my God, I got sick of hearing me talk about the problem. I know what's wrong. Look at me. I'm it. Tell me what to do. Or how can we find a plan? So make sure you find someone. This goes for everyone. You have something you want to change? Good. Connect, feel the connection with someone, and then interview them. Make sure they have a plan for you to follow to bring you back or to get you out of where you're in, right? To journey through this so you can function at the level you want. Because after time, perhaps the meds might not work for the person anymore. We don't know. My neurosurgeon said to me, we know about 10% of what happens in the brain. Like the day before he cut me open, by the way, which was not comforting at all. Besides the fact he knew how to remove a tumor. And we talked about meds a little, me and him, and the idea that the meds we take hopefully do certain things that we need, but we really don't know. There's so much more to the brain. So when these meds perhaps aren't working anymore, you need to build tools to support you while using them. So that if you want to ever wean off of them, if that's your choice, you know you have the tools and the skill sets to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it's a unique to each individual case, the methods or tools or people who will be able to help you. So I'm just saying, it's not an easily answered question, but one of the things that Joe again offers is she'll work with someone. She's working with somebody, and they're in a environment, in a household that's not safe. And so the number one thing in order for this person to get off of prescriptions is really to change the environment. Now that may take some time because you have to save up money for rent and et cetera, but you can't skip the notion or skip the the phase that equals you getting to a safe place. So if your environment's not safe, that can be a challenging thing, and that will also be a critical piece to get success of coming off a prescription drug. There are certain things that you will, as a human, need to be able to conquer or get with a challenge in your life. So it's a great question.
And it
there
is
are
different
tools
for everyone.
Yeah,
like
it's
you
unique
said.
and different for each person.
And
I
the
think,
fact
like
that-
Joe,
Go ahead.
like Joe, prescriptions can be helpful to get you through a certain phase. But I think just like anything else, whether it's a lollipop or a smoking cigarette or whatever else you like to do, you don't really want to do it your entire life. You don't want to drive a Vespa moped your whole life, right?
Hey, someone may want to.
Yeah,
Or they might want to smoke.
I'm
their
sure
whole
there
life.
is.
One last piece that I want to respond to the question is this. Anytime, if you ask the question, how do I get through this? You're already starting. Do you understand? As soon as you open up and say, wow, I don't want to drink every night, or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that, I don't know if it's helpful. You're already on the path.
And being courageous.
Yeah, of being courageous because you're being curious about what you're doing. That's all, not judging. I'm not judging. I'm saying, wow, why do I always need coffee? Or why do I always have to have something sweet after I eat? And people will label these things as, oh, well, that's just normal. No, it's not. There's some of the things, wanting a drink every night isn't normal. I'm sorry. I'm not saying it's wrong, but do you see how we normalize things? People normalize things so they feel good about themselves. What I say is tell the truth and feel nothing. I'm okay when I overeat. It's not, oh my God, I did something wrong. It's like, no, I overate. I had French fries and I went for it. And they were good. And so the first piece is there's the courage. And the second piece is finding someone who can hold that for you and co-regulate. And if y'all want to be extraordinary humans, when you regulate yourself and you can come back and you can find neutrality, people will want to be around you, and that's how you change the world. From your being, from your embodiment, just from allowing them to co-regulate with you changes them.
Right. And witnessing, being in partnership with my wife, with Joe, I think it's important also not to forget that transformation is a fairly tall order. Changing something is a fairly tall order. And we have those metaphors in nature where it's like the butterfly, the caterpillar becoming the butterfly, the salmon swimming up the stream to spawn. These are very challenging things, so always be gentle and kind to yourself, and the yoga will allow it to help you go within, to believe in yourself, listen to your heart. Those are some of the things I've witnessed, because being a female, being an entrepreneur in a fitness industry her whole entire life, it's kind of like a salmon swimming up a stream. This would never happen in 1993.
When I was 19,
One.
when I started teaching yoga, no, nobody would.
Jody's
I
been
would come
swim-
home and my dad would say, "Are you teaching yogurt again?" I'm like,
say-
"It's yoga."
Yeah, and tried to talk her out of her first business of doing that. Just be a school teacher and don't do anything else. All those types of things. Not to say one thing is better than the other. Just saying this personal journey that I've witnessed in the time that I've been with you. It's like a mindful, challenging, two,
Gut
one step up,
wrenching.
2 steps back, So trust
Scary.
yourself.
We're going to wrap up, and one of the if you feel you have trauma unmet, I want to tell you it is worth everything. It's worth it all to meet it and to integrate it and to live from a place of raw authenticity and meet life raw and allow it to happen. It's worth the pain. It's worth staying in bed. It's worth crying. It's worth losing anyone that doesn't get me. Anyone that was still stuck in my old paradigm. It was worth having no one besides my husband. It's worth it to find yourself. I guarantee you will be so satisfied when you meet you and you realize you're not what happened to you. You're not the stories. You're not what people say about you. Some people say things about me. They don't even know who I am. They don't even know who I am. And the beauty is all the trauma, all the stress you've been through, your life, your families, they've created and helped keep you alive. So everything you've ever done was survival. When you work through that, you get to thrive. And you thrive as you, and you don't care about the outer world because you're like, dude, I'm cool because I'm with me and I'm being me. And if my being me aggravates you, then go deal with you. Go figure yourself out. But it is worth understanding what you went through and then learning tools to be with that and then process it and integrate it and move as one. Because you can't cut out your memories. I can't take out, I'm from Hudson County, Kearney. That's like it. I'm from Kearney. And I talk weird sometimes, like draw or some things, whatever. Or that I had a tumor, or that I was dyslexic, or that I was this. I can't take those things away, but they don't impact me now because I don't believe them. You see, that's what we're going to talk about. What do you believe? Trauma and things, you look outward and you say, who am I according to that? It's like, no, who am I in here? And that takes time to get there. That's a process. But a process has steps. A process isn't dwelling in darkness. There's these steps to get out of it. And yoga has laid out the steps before you, the 8 limbs. Engage in them, participate in them. And just don't take a yoga class and think you're all going to change, because you're not. It's just one little aspect that will impact you from that. I just got like a ding and a hook that we're wrapping up because I could just keep going, and we will expand on some more of this stuff. And I invite our friends that are live to send me emails. I mean, we're going to be together after this, but also emails at BecomeOneLiving@gmail.com, BecomeOneLiving@gmail.com, emails with questions that we could talk about, or reach out if you want information on yoga therapy or internal family systems and different things to work through trauma. I can also refer therapists if you need, or if you know someone, you can ask around for that. But thank you for joining us, and thank you for our friends that were on Instagram, and we're out.